Islam Makhachev is arguably the most well-rounded fighter in UFC history. Coming from a sambo background, he has amazing grappling, and he owns the most lightweight title defenses, tied the UFC record for consecutive wins, and added a welterweight championship to his resume. However, best fighter ever and greatest career ever are not necessarily the same thing. The strongest version of the argument focuses less on championships and more on how complete and technically dominant he is inside of the cage. When it comes to his grappling, Islam has great freestyle entries. He also specializes in many areas such as his sambo trips, Greco-Roman clinch work, his judo-style upper body throws and trips, chain wrestling. He has great mat returns, and once he gets his opponent down, he's good at riding the legs, controlling them, and he rarely shoots desperate takedowns. Instead, he either times his opponent's entries or create reactions with feints or strikes. Some examples including he establishes his southpaw jab, his opponent circles, he establishes the outside foot position, get to a body lock, use an inside trip, wrist ride, and tries to take the back. Most people think Islam wins because of his grappling, but film studying suggests something different. He wins because his opponents never really get the range they want. For example, right, against Charles Oliveira, Charles wanted to drag Islam into chaotic exchanges so he can land bombs on him. He wants to drag him into chaotic wrestling or grappling exchanges so he can find submissions. But Islam was able to stay safe and keep sliding away from range or on the ground avoid sticky situations. He's good at controlling the lead hand, taking small steps on the outside, and he rarely overextends, and he forces Oliveira to charge in recklessly and throw a flying knee, which Islam countered with a left hook and dropping him. Instead of chasing a knockout, he slowly closes distance until Charles's feet become squared, and then he throws strikes and he attacks. The patience is amazing. And against Alexander Volkanovski, Volkanovski is famous for his timing and his distance management. He has said before that he doesn't even have the long reach that the UFC stats were saying. He just has such a great jab and great timing that it looks like he's outranging all of these fighters like Max Holloway and different other fighters. Well, when Islam was fighting him, Volk was pretty hesitant, and wrestling was able to slow down Volk's boxing, and his boxing threat was able to slow down Volk's anti-wrestling. And Islam's striking is still so underrated, even though people are starting to give him credit. He's extremely intelligent southpaw striker with amazing fundamentals. It's not flashy, it's not super explosive or super fast, but he's very good at staying safe and doing the right thing. His weapons includes his left straight, his rear body kick and high kick, which are very powerful and precise. He has good calf kicks, which he used against Jack Della Maddalena, a good lead hook that he dropped Charles Oliveira with, and check hook. And he's also good at throwing knees and pull counters. Notice something, right? He almost never throws combinations just to score or just to hit his opponent. Every strike is designed to create the next exchange, whether it's another strike or a wrestling exchange. And I feel like this is much, much harder than simply landing punches. And his timing on takedowns is very, very good as well. It's somewhat similar to GSP. He almost never shoots from too far away. Instead, it's when his opponents overextend, either by a punch or a kick, he slips, he makes contact with his shoulder, put his head inside, safe from guillotines or other submission attempts, gets a body lock, and he takes his opponent down with trips or throws. There's almost no space for sprawls. Against Bobby Green, he barely needed penetration steps. Everything came from upper body control. And against Drew Dober, he repeatedly attacked immediately after Dober planted his feet. Timing beats explosiveness and power. Islam understands this better than almost anyone. And next thing we're going to talk about is footwork. Islam's footwork is also very underrated. Most wrestlers move in a linear direction while Islam actually moves like a striker. He takes the L step very often to create distance, and he's constantly circling outside on the lead foot, and he's always changing his rhythm as well. Against Dan Hooker, he forced Dan Hooker towards the fence before shooting. People remember the Kimura that he hit on Dan Hooker, but the important part seemed to have happened earlier. Dan Hooker had already lost every escape lane, and a submission somewhat become inevitable. And against Jack Della Maddalena, this fight may become one of his most impressive performances. Jack was considered one of UFC's best boxers, and Islam disrupted his rhythm with calf kicks, constantly changing levels. Like he would feint the jab and get to the and beat Jax to the hips almost every time, and easily outstruck him and outgrapple him over 5 rounds and just controlled him. Demonstrated that he could neutralize an elite welterweight striker while fighting naturally 170 pounds. And in his second fight against Alexander Volkanovski, people often just completely dismisses it because Volk accepted it on short notice. But watch the finish. Islam noticed Volk was leaning, he was throwing body kicks, spamming body kicks in the opposite stance, and then disguises the left high kick with perfect timing and no wasted movement. And it's one of the cleanest knockouts he has ever scored. And against Charles Oliveira, Charles entered with 11 straight finishes. Islam finished him. Even more impressively, Charles never looked uncomfortable, while Islam denied scrambles, transition, and he was able to be safe while Charles is constantly pressuring him and finish him cleanly. Well, there are so reasonable counter-arguments against calling him the greatest fighter in UFC history. For example, John Jones, he defeated multiple generations of champions. His resume includes Daniel Cormier, Shogun Rua, Rampage Jackson, Lyoto Machida, Rashad Evans, Beto Belfort, and Glover Teixeira, beating Alexander Gustafsson twice, which is pretty much championship level, and he beat Cyril Gane very easily, which aged really well. And his strength of schedule was nothing but extraordinary. Or maybe another argument is that George St. Pierre. GSP ruled one of the deepest division in UFC history. He has 9 welterweight title defenses. He returned a year later and beat Michael Bisping for the middleweight championship. Another criticism when it comes to Islam's title reign includes several featherweights or late notice replacement. For example, the second fight with Alexander Volkanovski, the Moicano fight on short notice, and people will be saying that, oh, he beat Bobby Green to get a title shot. While these wins remain legitimate, critics argue that he has never faced fewer elite natural lightweights than Jones or GSP facing their divisions. And that context is part of the GOAT debate. So I feel like the overall assessment is, if the question is who has the greatest resume, there's a reasonable ranking, so places maybe Jones and GSP or Demetrius Johnson because of their longevity and how many numbers of title defenses they had, right? But if the question is who is the most technically complete fighter to ever compete in UFC, I think Islam Makhachev has one of the strongest cases in history. He has blends of elite striking, elite wrestling, grappling, great distance management, he has good feints, he has great timing, good footwork, and he's good at adapting when it comes to sticky situations. I feel like all of these reasons makes him one of the most difficult fighters to ever formulate a game plan against. He's pretty much good everywhere, and he's also huge. Unlike specialists who overwhelm opponents in one phase, Makhachev continuously wins by forcing opponents into non-winnable tactical decisions. That combination of completeness and efficiency is the foundation of the argument that he may be the best fighter the UFC has ever seen. And I think if he beats Ian Gary, we might have to call him the greatest of all time.